Hello.
Hello, Sam.
Okay, so Dr. Dave is here tonight because of networking. And as professionals in this industry, we all have opportunities to join organizations such as the Traffic Club. And those opportunities really do show benefit with having multiple people that we can reach out to for different things. Thank you, Dr. Dave.
Thank you.
Our speaker joins us tonight because of the people that I've met, not only through the Traffic Club, but also through the BMA. And we were fortunate enough to find Dr. Dave and he showed a lot of enthusiasm for the topic that we wanted him to speak on. And it was something that we as the aspiring leaders felt very passionate about. Like Jeff said, we had this conversation about a year and a half ago and it did get a little heated. It was pretty interesting to see the differences in what everyone thought because of the generation. You had some who were a little bit more open-minded, some who were not. So I'm really excited about this topic, and I know Dr. Dave has quite a presentation for us. So a little bit of background on Dr. Dave. He is the founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and prior to starting his corporation, he had 27 years of experience in emergency services, entrepreneurship, and he is a professional speaker and trainer for various organizations. So make sure you get with him at some point to speak for your organization. He has a passion for helping individuals and teams and organizations, and one of the main reasons why we were so excited to have him come. He has a mission of adding value to those who can make an impact in the lives of others. And in this industry, that's exactly what we do. We make a lot of difference, and we benefit our community, the country, other countries. So, welcome, Dr. Dave.
Thank you very much. Quick question. Can you guys hear me okay? Or should I use the microphone?
What?
Exactly. Okay. Is that better? Okay, I didn't want to be too loud. Didn't want to be too soft. So let me switch back over here now that the shameless plug is over. Well, almost over. Who here is in attendance who's not a member of the Traffic Club? Anybody not a member of the Traffic Club? Well, guess what? Jessica showed where you can go online and you can actually become a member. So if you are not already a member, please go online, sign up, become a member, because Sam is absolutely right. Networking and connecting with people is absolutely one of the most important things you can do when you're in business. So that'll be shameless plug number 3. Yes. Now, how important is it for everybody in this room to be able to get along with, work well with, and actually, God forbid, enjoy working with everybody that's there in your workforce? You're thinking, okay, maybe it has some potential. Okay, I'm listening. When you talk about, there's the millennials and there's the baby boomers, there's this and that, and we're going to get into a lot of the definitions. We're going to get into a lot of that. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure and get across to everybody is that in the end, we're all people. We're all just here to relate to other people. We just all look at things from a different perspective and a different lens. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. And one thing I'm going to try, I'm going to get everybody to do something a little bit different than you've probably ever been told before at a speech. Most places, I would say, whatever you do, man, put your phasers on stun, turn the ringer off, turn it to, yes, phasers on stun, turn it to maybe vibrate or silent. But I'm actually going to get you all to pull out your phone and go here. Now, there's limited to the first 20 people. After 20 people, it'll say it's kicked you out. So please, if it doesn't let you in, don't raise your hand and say, I can't get in. But before we get started, go there, rwpoll.com. It'll ask for a keyword. Put Miles in because we have a few interesting tidbits for you guys tonight. And I want you to be able to play along. So I'll give you just a second to do that. right. rwpoll.com, the keyword is miles. All right. Seeing that, of course. Session ID, yes ma'am, miles. Capital M-I-L-E-S. I had to write that down. So we got a pop quiz for everybody, or at least everybody that could get signed in with the session ID miles. All right. You ready? True or false? Pop quiz. True or false question. I have a really good understanding of placing this projector where you can actually read the text. For me, that would be false. Or for you guys, the question is, I have a really good understanding of generational differences in the workforce. True or false? I have a really good understanding of generational differences in the workforce. True or false? Go ahead and put something in, and let's see what we got. Outstanding. Oh, well, my job's already done. We're going to go get me a chicken breast with some pasta. I mean, wow, that's 78%. Have a good feeling. Oh, cool, this will be a short one. Outstanding. Make my job easy. Okay. Now the next one, maybe a little bit tougher. Multiple choice. How many different generations could be in the workforce today? As of today, up to how many different generations could possibly be in the workforce? Let's see what we got. Give you guys a few minutes. Chime in with your answer. And let's see what we got. 75% say 4. 25% say 5, and the 2 or 3. Right. So we'll figure out what the right answer is a little bit later. Leave you hanging for a little bit. Might be 4, might be 5. We're pretty sure it's not 2 or 3 for those that smart enough not to put 2 or 3. So let's go over a few objectives for the evening. This is what we are trying to accomplish. I have 3 things that I want to accomplish this evening. 1, I want to inform. Be nice to kind of give you a little bit of information about different generations in the workplace. Saying that's kind of why I was here. 2, educate you with some tips and tools on how to manage multiple generations in the workplace, how to get along with folks, And number 3, to entertain. And I'll leave you guys to kind of, yes, just saying. This is one of my favorite quotes. This was my academic grandfather, lives in Rockville, love him to death. This was his email signature for years. If learning isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. And I wholeheartedly subscribe to that. It's bad enough having to sit here and listen to somebody ramble on for 45 minutes or so. When you're not having a lot of fun, it makes it even worse. So if you can have some fun, it's just a whole lot more enjoyable. You can absolutely absorb the information and maybe put it to some good use. So if learning isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. So speaking about fun, we're going to have a little video here for you to see how many of you can relate to this, either being on one side of the chair or the other. So as I wondered, how many can relate to either being on one side of the chair or the other? Let's watch the video.
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept in Excel?
No. Oh, no.
Publisher.
Not really.
Exactly in what area of technology are you proficient?
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter. You know the big one.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You ever just ask Siri?
You know, Siri, tell me this, Siri, find me that. We're all good at getting you the answers.
Tell Siri I want you ready to go at 8 sharp each and every morning.
I don't understand.
What don't you understand?
What you just said.
You don't understand
work for me. Who gets up at 8?
I do.
I Skype with my French boyfriend in Paris until like 3 in the morning. I don't even get to Starbucks until like 10, where I order my grande chai tea latte, 3 pumpkin milk, white water, 2% foam, extra hot but not too hot. So if it's okay, I work best in the morning at 10:45.
Wow. Amy, I don't think we're going to be a good fit.
Why are you so negative? I can sense your hostilities, and right now I am not feeling very safe. I've been here for over 5 minutes, and the only nice thing you have said to me was nice resume, which I typed all night for this meeting with you. You've given me no guidance, no validation, no encouragement, no supervision. Is there an HR director somewhere?
HR director?
Yes, I need to speak to someone. I may have to take on today as a mental health day.
Amy, look at me. You don't work here.
Are you firing me?
Okay, yeah.
How many of you can relate to being either on one side of that chair or the other? I see some head nods, not a whole lot of hands, but I see a few head nods like, oh yeah, I've been in one side or the other. So cool. So I had an interesting quote for you guys. This was one, and I want you to let me know, when do you think this quote was given? It says, I see no hope for the future for our people if they are dependent on the frivolous youth of today. I see no hope for the future of our people if they are dependent on the frivolous youth of today. Probably George Washington, okay? Anybody over here? What do you think? Time period, maybe quote from? It has to be Ben Franklin. Okay, I got a GW. Let's rent a hotel. God bless him. Got a Ben Franklin. How about you guys? Anybody? Any ideas? We got a George Washington. We got a Ben Franklin. How about you all there? Any thoughts? Abraham Lincoln. Okay. How about over here? But you ask Siri and come back, because I know what Siri's going to say, because that's on the next slide. I'd already asked Siri. I actually asked Dr. Google. He's the one who got me hooked up with this one. But all right, so no, this was actually, yes, somewhere around 650, 750 BC. Yes, they've been fussing about the younger generation coming in pretty much since younger generations have been coming in. In some way, shape, or form. So I looked at it and said, I see no hope for the future for our people. They're dependent on the frivolous youth of today. For certainly all youth are reckless beyond words. When I was a boy, we were taught to be discreet and respectful of elders. But the present youth are exceedingly wise and impatient of restraint. I know none of that would sound familiar, but just in case it did, that was from like 750 BC. But I was like, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Maybe that was just one crotchety old Greek philosopher that just had a stick up his butt. I don't know. Until I found this other Greek philosopher that seemed to have the same stick in the same place. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in the place of exercise. They're playing their video games. They won't go out and play. What's wrong with them? Oh, anyway. I don't think Socrates had a PlayStation. Sorry. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their household. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents and chatter before company. They gobble up their dainties at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize over their teachers. They're causing the teachers a bunch of problems at school. They don't have manners. They don't. Sounds familiar? I don't know. But this has been going on pretty much since Adam and Eve have been doing their thing. We've always been fussing about the generations coming beyond us. Now, speaking of that, George Orwell had a very interesting quote that I like, talking about every generation imagines itself to be a little bit more intelligent than the one that went before and a lot wiser than the one coming after. Something to think about. Just trying to put all this into context. And, of course, with all this wisdom from Greek philosophers and George Orwell, we had to consult the sage wisdom of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You just have to. I mean, it's just a thing. You got to. So what does Douglas Adams have to say about this? Anything that was in the world when you were born is normal. It's just ordinary. It's the way the world works. Now, anything that was invented between the time you were 15 years old and 35 years old is new and revolutionary. It's exciting, and you might be able to get a career in it. So just, go to technical school. You can get a certificate in something between 15 and 35. But anything that came after you were age 35 is absolutely against the natural order of things. Done. World's coming to an end at this point. Just throwing it out there. Now, cell phones are funny. I got a couple of examples I want you guys to think about. Who's got kids at home that when you're away, you call them, small kids? Anybody have small kids at home? A couple of you? Okay. Who has an iPhone? Anybody have an iPhone? Okay, about half Android, half iPhone. Okay. If you're calling your kids, how are you calling them? If you got small kids, are you calling them on the actual telephone, or what do you? FaceTime, exactly. Exactly. So you've got this 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old kid that grows up. And every time you're out of town, what do? You FaceTime them. What does grandma do? They FaceTime them. Guess what? This kid is growing up thinking, when I talk to somebody on the phone, there's a picture on the other end of this. They don't know any different. One cartoon that we used to watch where there was a picture on the telephone every time we watched it. What was that? The Jetsons. Yeah, they're going to look at that and they're like, oh man, that's early American history there. I mean, that's, of course they were able to see each other. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? But that's all they know. So think about it. What is something that's all you know? That's all you grew up with. I mean, we joke about, going uphill both ways in the snow and all that, but I tell you, nobody from Gen X went both ways in the snow barefoot, uphill. No, I didn't. I'll put it that way. I grew up in Chesapeake. It's flat there, so there was no uphill. Just saying. So what about you guys? What do you think? What have you grown up with? Who's grown up with always had the internet? Who's grown up always had cell phones? That's just all they know. Think about all these millennials are always on their phone. Well, who put the phone in their hand? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Just think about it for a second. How many times, for all those of us over 40 who went on the road trip? And you know where I'm going with this. Mom and dad are in the front, you're in the back, and you have this imaginary line. Now, it could be like a regular border, where it's just the lines in the middle, your half, my half. Little brother, little sister, older brother, older sister. You've got it. You could do halvesies, okay? Like you build the wall kind of thing. You stay on your half, I stay on my half. Sorry, bad pun, but I mean, it's you get what I'm talking about, right down the middle. Or it could be like Korea. Like literally, you have the seat over here, and you have that flat part in the middle that's supposed to be for the third person because it's a third, 3 people in the bench seat in the back, but it never fits 3 people. And that whole middle part is like the demilitarized zone. Like nobody even touch it. You don't break the airspace, right? And then what is it? The whole time for 4 hours you're going on a trip, and it's he's on my side or she's on my side, or they're touching me, or it's back and forth and back and forth. Stop it, make them stop it. If I have to take this car and turn around, I swear, don't make me come back there. That was the road trip. Now, guess what? Like, all right, I'm done with that, but we are not doing that road trip again. So what happens now? We got headphones and an iPad. They're watching the movie, and God bless America, it is quiet for 4.5 hours. And then we fuss. They play with the iPad all the time. They can't put it down. We're not going to put it down. You put it in their hand. Just a thought. Just something to think about. I'm not saying that it's best to have the fight in the back and you're not paying attention to the road and you're about to stop it. That's why they made yardsticks. So you could. Okay. That's child abuse. Okay. That which seems to be the height of absurdity in one generation often becomes the height of wisdom in the other. Anybody heard of Woodstock? Warren Cleaver didn't think that was really cool, but all the baby boomers were like, yeah, this is awesome. And then this one from Adlai Stevenson, nothing dates a man is to decry the younger generation. The only reason I say that is because then all of a sudden you've just made the admission, I'm old. So you just deny. Like, I don't care what that lying camera says or what my birth certificate says. No, I'm not old. I am not old. I am not old until the death certificate comes out. Then I wish I was old. But at that point, it's a little bit too late. So in 2020, answer to the question, and I think right now we're about close enough for government work to be 2020. Pew Research Center says there could be as many as 5 generations in the workplace. Think about that one. So we've got our traditionalists, our baby boomers, our Gen Xers, our millennials, and our Generation Z, or our iGens. And we're going to talk about all of those. We're specifically going to look at the baby boomers, the Gen Xs, and the millennials. Because if you look at it, your traditionalist, roughly over 70. A few still in the workplace, but not quite as many as there once was before. You have your baby boomers that comprise a big part of the workplace. They were almost 60 million in population. You've got Generation X, it's a little bit smaller, kind of that 37 to 51 range. 22 to 36, Generation Y. And now, all of a sudden, you have 19s, 20, 21, 22-year-olds that are coming in that are part of this new generation, Generation Z. And you want to talk about a generation who has not known anything but technology. These are the ones that have never been on a road trip without headphones and without an iPad and without that type of technology. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic when they come in, but that's not the topic of this evening. We're going to take out the traditionalists. We're going to take out Generation Z. We'll cover a little bit, but that's not going to be our main focus because there's not quite as many in the workplace on either end of the spectrum as that. So a little bit of research from the University of Missouri that we're going to cover a little bit about each of the generations that I want to touch base with you on. First, silent generation or traditionalists. Like I said, not going to go into a lot of depth with them, but we've got a few things. Grew up in the Great Depression, World War II had something to do with that, or that influenced them quite a bit. They've got great interpersonal skills. They, for the largest time, the largest voting population, huge political influence with the AARP. Normally, the men worked in the workplace. Women stayed home, took care of the children in that generation. The behaviors are based on their experiences during the Depression and World War II. What was that experience that they had? What's that? Not a lot to go around. Very frugal, very conservative with money because they had to be. Even though the cash under the mattress type of thing. Times got better, but they remembered, and they know times could get bad because they were around when times were bad. Their influences, their big historic events for the Depression, World War II, the Cold War, McCarthyism, kind of the start of the civil rights movement. And at that time, children were really seen and not heard. Now, for the baby boomers, they grew up during the civil rights era. They grew up during the Cold War. Those are two huge influences for them. They were born during a spike after World War II, and thank you guys, I really appreciate this. Just saying this from a Gen X perspective. They created the word workaholic. They're the ones that invented the 60-plus hour work week. Thanks. Love you. And the largest generation were the largest generation. They were a single largest economic group. They're still the single largest economic powerhouse group right now. When you think about it, they've got the largest earning potential. They've been earning money for the longest period of time. Of course, they're going to be the largest economic engine going. Roughly about 76 million, makes up about 28% of the Americans. And you can see some of the characteristics. the largest workforce. They run a lot of the local, state, and national governments. Very individualistic, social cause oriented, free spirited. Like I said, these were the folks that went to Woodstock. Can be a little less optimistic, distrust government a little bit. They want products and services that show their success. Who buys the Cadillacs? Who buys the Maseratis? Who's got the money to buy the Cadillacs and the Maseratis? Mostly the baby boomers. Awesome. Work ethic is measured in hours worked. There's less importance placed on productivity. And a lot of these research findings are more general, so they don't apply it all the way around. Teamwork is critical to their success. Their historic events, Cold War, Vietnam War, assassination of JFK. Who remembers the assassination of John F. Kennedy? Anybody in the room? A little bit, maybe? Anybody here that remembers that vividly? Watergate, Nixon, all of that. And like I said, and obviously can't forget Woodstock. So Generation X, you're talking about 1965 roughly to 1980. It's a time frame. So for there, we're looking at, they were defined initially as slackers. I don't know. They have kind of a seize the day attitude. They're the first generation to really start becoming comfortable with technology. Also, they experienced more divorces than any other generation before them, ever. And what was one of the big things in the 80s for the Gen Xers? You had two parents working, so what happened to Junior? Latchkey kids, yes. Lots of time alone. So when they're home alone, well, one, you can get in a lot of trouble. And mom and dad at least are good enough to put a lock on the liquor cabinet. You got to get practical with juniors alone. I'm just saying. But that made them very independent and self-reliant because they had to be. If you're home alone a lot, you want something to eat, better figure out how to go to the fridge and get it. Better be able to learn how to make stuff. Very independent, very self-reliant. At a necessity, but it served very well when he got out into the workforce. They want immediate feedback. They kind of mistrust institutions a bit. Like I said, latchkey kids, somewhat suspicious of the baby boomer values, and they really value family time. Because if that was something that you were without because of being home alone a lot, that would be something that you missed out on. You want to make sure and pass that along that you don't have that missing out on your kids. Big deal. So at work, casual, they like a friendly work environment. They like to be involved. They look at it as a place to learn. Very big in lifelong learning. Work smarter, not harder is a big one for them. Lots of open communication, regardless of position, title, or tenure. Some of their historic events, the computers just started coming into play at that point. Internet just started coming into play. The Challenger explosion was a huge one. Follow the Berlin Wall, Reaganomics. It said Vietnam, Watergate, but that was really kind of at the very beginning of that. That wasn't quite as big of it as that. And unfortunately, just like you guys had the bell bottoms in the 70s and the polyester, they had the parachute pants and the breakdancing. So, I mean, every generation's got their embarrassing moments that they could probably do without. So Generation Y, millennials, somewhere between 81 and 94. Now, if you notice, a lot of times the generations were in that kind of 20-year range, and it started to shrink a little bit and shrink a little bit and shrink a little bit, time-wise. And one of the things that causes it to shrink isn't as much as the time as it is some of the historic and seminal events that happened during that time. So what really is a hallmark of the kind of the end of the millennial generation is most of the millennials remember and can put some kind of context to 9/11. Anybody who remembers 9/11 as, oh, that's something I was told about, that's something I learned about, that was something in history, I wasn't there, I didn't remember it. Not a millennial. That's your Gen Z, that's your iGen generation, ones coming out, the 19, 20, 21-year-olds. Because those, it's kind of like my generation remembered the Kennedy assassination. I wasn't there for it. Or we were born so far, it was just so close, or we were just too young to remember, one of the two. So 9/11 is kind of that breaking point between millennials, and the iGen generation. But a lot of their historic events, Oklahoma City bombing, the internet becoming prolific, death of Princess Diana, the Columbine shootings, Y2K, terrorism, and it has down here swine flu, which I have to laugh because swine flu just wasn't for these guys. I seem to remember standing in a long, long line at the health department with my parents, and they had these really gnarly looking guns, and everybody got their swine flu shot, and they all had their little mark on their shoulder, it seemed like, from the scar from that thing. Does anybody remember? They had it at the health department. They had these little air guns, and they would give the vaccinations. Yep. So I remember it was a huge thing. I don't remember anybody that ever got the swine flu, but everybody was losing their mind over it, and we had to wait in line for hours so everybody can get it vaccinated. I don't know. Now at work, they search for individuals who will help them achieve their goals. They want constant open communication and reinforcement. They look for a job that gives great personal fulfillment. They want leadership from bosses and supervisors, and look for opportunities to learn. They want to be engaged. And it's kind of one of those work to live rather than live to work, kind of going full circle on the invention of the workaholics. Thanks again. And then there's a question, Gen Z or iGen. So we're not going to spend a lot of it, but that 9/11 was the defining breaking point between the two. There's 23 million and growing. What they looked at is Hurricane Katrina. They looked at Facebook, the global war on terror. And one of the things with them that's going to be very, very important to think about, they've always had a phone in their hand. These guys haven't. They've grown up with it. They're very tech savvy. They're very tech dependent. But you want to talk about somebody who's a digital native, just like we were talking about the FaceTime for the kids now. They've never known a time where there wasn't cell phones, where you couldn't Google everything. Like Yellow Pages, landline, what are you talking about? That's these guys coming. So Merry Christmas, something to look forward to 10 years from now. I'll come back. So let's look at a few generational attributes. Looking at the top 3 generations in the workplace today. We'll look at the baby boomers, we'll look at the Gen X, and we'll look at the millennials. So a couple of generation values defined by their career, position, title is very important for the baby boomers. Yeah, like I said, they invented the word workaholic, very process oriented. SOPs and processes are very, very important. Expect to work their way up in the organization. I start at the bottom, I spend my time, I pay my dues, I'm going to be able to work my way up through the organization. Very important. Also, a little bit Generation X, a little bit skeptical about companies. They saw their baby boomer parents maybe not get the best end of the stick, maybe not end up with the gold watch and the pension that they were hoping for. Things kind of went bad, and a lot of that went to the wayside. A lot of layoffs, a lot of plant closures, a lot of manufacturing jobs that went elsewhere. So kind of the baby boomers' promise of that they got from their parents, the traditionalists, spend the 40 years here, you get to go watch the pension, everything's cool. Well, fortunately, everything wasn't cool for the boomers. So the Gen X was like, I'll hedge my bets and maybe do some investing on my own. I said, very self-reliant for being latchkey kids. They really value collegial working relationships. That's huge. If you can have really good, solid relationship building, that's huge for them. They like frequent feedback. They're the results and process oriented. Not just worried about following the rules, following the process. The process is king. They really threw in the extra effort of got to be able to get results from the process. If the process is not achieving results, we need to go back and look at it. Very tech savvy, and they look at respect must be earned. Now, values from the millennials, self-confident, very entrepreneurial, really want to make a difference. They expect to do well. They come wanting to do well, to contribute, to make a difference. It's just question everything, which could be bad in some ways, but if they know the why behind what you're doing, count the paper clips. Certain generations like, well, all said to count the paper clips. Okay, well, that's what I expect to do, count the paper clips. But if you can tag why counting the paper clips fits into the larger organizational framework, like, okay, I'll do whatever you ask as long as I can connect the dots on why. A lot more kind of a lower tolerance for boredom, And they live in the present moment, a lot more mindful of the present circumstances. So the work ethic, you go from one end of the spectrum from workaholics to work smarter, not harder, to want some meaningful and challenging work, and they want to contribute significantly. You look at one end of the spectrum, computerizing of the processes can be somewhat intimidating, to I've always had everything computerized. From seeing the need for work-life balance. Now, this is funny. In the baby boomers who invented the word workaholic, what happened in 2008? All these folks were ready to, what's that? Or at least they lost half of everything. So all these folks that are looking to retire, that were planning on retiring, that had all their, I've got the plan. This is the way it's supposed to work. Plan didn't work that way, did it? So who's in the workforce a whole lot longer than they were planning on being? These guys. So now it's realizing, wow, I really want to be retired right now. So maybe this little work-life balance thing isn't quite the worst thing in the world. Just saying, a little flexible time, a little be able to kind of come and go and do something. That's becoming a lot more important for baby boomers as they get older and thinking, okay, I could have been retired. Work should be a source of lifelong learning for the Gen Xers. They like constant variety and stimulation. They expect to enjoy what they do. They like to have fun in doing it. And for them, it's always been a work-life balance because they saw their parents. With millennials, it's not as much work-life balance, it's as much work-life integration. And we all kind of get sucked into that. How many folks disconnect their phones, don't take emails, don't take phone calls when you leave the office at 5 o'clock? You pack up the lunch pail, you walk out the door, and you're good to go for no, none of us do that. Nobody. So it's all work-life integration now. I love where it says that, but yeah, there's no balance. It's just how can you integrate it to match what you're doing best you can. Now, here's something kind of goes with this. Expect to progress quickly, but don't misunderstand. Career progression doesn't necessarily mean promotion. And when I say that is, somebody wants to be able to contribute more than they're contributing now. That's not the same as, hey, I want to be over here and have all this P&L responsibility, make sure payroll goes out. I want to make sure. There's a lot of stuff that comes with those positions that's not really what they're looking for. When you talk about being able to move up, it's more being able to contribute and really make a difference in the organization. So some of the styles, baby boomers are a little bit more formalized in their communication style. They like to have meetings. They prefer in person, very formal. Generation A, and it starts to go downhill, more informal as the generations come through. They like direct, immediate communication. Email works well. They like email over memos for Gen X. And they like meetings if there's a clear purpose. Now, millennials, as a whole, that's a big one. They're not a big fan of long, drawn-out meetings unless you have a clear, defined purpose. And if you think about it, some of your business owners and some of the high Ds in the room, for those who have taken a disc scale, that's not a bad thing. Hey, let's get in, let's get out. Let's do what we got. This is a lot of money here. Let's accomplish some results. They like instant messaging and text, things that are more informal. Most meetings, it look like if they don't have a defined purpose, waste of time, and they see memos and policies as kind of almost like a glacial form of communication. These memos go out, it's just kind of in one ear and out the other. Who reads the email? Who reads the memos? Nobody. And that's not just them. It's just companies, this proliferation of emails and memos come out to the point where nobody sees them. So here's a good way to compare and contrast the difference between, I have a quick question from the millennials, and a baby boomer saying, hey, let's have a really long meeting to not solve your problem, but let's discuss your quick question. And these guys are like, oh, for God's sake, just give me an answer. I got to go. We got stuff to do. Oh, let's chat. Come on. And believe me, I'm all about relationship building, but at this point, they're trying to get the job done. So God bless them. I'm just saying. Now, as far as the age pyramid, this is from 2015. It's a little dated, but I want you guys to see the trend here. Boomers, 74 million in the United States. They were the largest. You got about 50 million Gen Xers, roughly-ish. But look at the millennials. And because the boomers, that was the biggest generation ever. Just can't get any bigger. You got 83 million millennials. And everybody who's a boomer should be thanking the good Lord right now because you got somebody to help pay Social Security. I'm just saying, I'm being practical here. You got 73 million, and then you got 50 million, and then if you're going to 30 million, it ain't looking good for the home team, brothers and sisters. I'll just leave it at that. So you got 83 million. Well, I might get a check. I'm still not counting on it myself, but I'm a Gen Xer. I don't. Yeah. I'll count on that check when I get it. So what? What's that mean for me? Okay, that's a lot of nice information, not a lot of research. You're like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So what? Well, I'm going to try to give you the so what, something you can take home with you. So just a few tips. Working with baby boomers. And this is tips no matter what. If you're a baby boomer, you're a Gen Xer, if you're a millennial, anywhere in between. Tap into the historical perspective. There is nothing better than working with folks who are like, oh, that's the old crotchety guy. No, make friends with the old crotchety guy because of one reason. If this is the only reason, make friends with the old crotchety guy, young folks, because they know where the bodies are buried. Okay? They know the skeletons that are in the closet. That's a good thing, okay? This is a good thing. When I worked at Valley, I had a buddy of mine named Gary. He was in his mid-60s. God bless him. He knew where every body was buried. He was my buddy. He's still my buddy. But one of the things about having that organizational knowledge that's so important, you're like, oh, I got this great idea. And someone says, oh, we can't do that. Well, why? Well, I don't know. That's just the way we always did it. That's really not the right answer. Now, if you can go back to these guys and say, why? Oh, because we did it this way, and boom, 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 you have a reason for it. Oh, okay. That'll fly. There's a legitimately good, solid reason. Regulatory reasons or government reasons are just too expensive or whatever. Now, there may be new technologies now that could do that, but they have that organizational perspective. That is invaluable. So like I said, they're looking for a lot more work-life balance. So anything you do to bridge the gap with that is a beautiful thing. Promote the use of teams. Because the nice part about teams is they don't all have to be one type of folks. They don't have to be one generation. You get very diverse teams. You got generationally diverse, you got racially diverse, you got socially diverse. The more you can put together different people with different thoughts and different points of view, it's great because you bring in different viewpoints. Everybody has something extra that they can contribute to the team. Those are wonderful environments. The younger folks get to be able to learn. The older folks get to be able to find out something and get new perspectives that they didn't have. It's a win-win all the way around. Recognize what they have to offer. Use the knowledge that they have. And younger managers need to treat baby boomers like individuals. It's intimidating, and it can be kind of awkward. If you have somebody that's half your age as your manager, you're like, okay, this is weird. Different if you've retired and you're coming back to the workforce, but just acknowledge that fact. If you're the younger manager, just be respectful of that. Now, two sides of the same coin, and the same side if you can't read the stuff on the top. Awesome. I'll get that fixed. There we go. Two sides of the same coin. One, there is some validity to this. I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. If you're the one on the receiving end of that statement, throw a little bit of respect on there. Because yes, they've been doing it as long as you've been alive or longer. Think about what you've been doing for your whole life. He's one, he's left, right. I get pretty good at that after a while. I've been doing this my whole life, right? I'm just throwing it out there. So they've been doing this for a long time. They're probably pretty good at it too. So there's a lot to learn. It's awesome. But saying that, flip side of the coin, this is great. When I was in the fire department, we used to have lots of fun with this. I've been fire department, 30-year veteran. Cool. Are you truly a 30-year veteran? Or you're a 1-year veteran that's just repeated the same process over the last 30 years? There is a difference. So what is new out there that you can learn? What are you doing to refresh your skills and to learn new things and to sharpen your saw and to do things to actually improve what you're doing over and over and over so you truly have 30 years of experience not 1 year of experience that you've just repeated and rinsed and repeated and rinsed and repeated. Anyway, man, where's my gold watch, man? Where's that picture at? It's right here somewhere. And for the younger folks, don't be a 220. For God's sake, please don't be a 220. Does anybody know what I mean by 220? Anybody? You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. What's that? 220 voltage. I had a saying years ago when I was in the fire department in Portsmouth. We called them 220s. Walk in the door, it didn't matter if they were there 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. They acted like they'd been there for 20. They was just as pissed off. They was just as burnt out. They was just as I know everything as the guys that have been there 20 years. Problem is, they've been there 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months. Don't be that person. Okay, just don't. Because it doesn't serve you well when you got the guy who's in his early 60s and he's just like, oh God, I got 3 more years. Place. Okay, you get it. You're like, okay, all right, you got a year and a half left. I get it, man. You've been run through the ringer. You get the 22-year-old, it's like, man, you just started here 8 months ago. Man, how you burn out? You just started. Are you burnt out and you just started? You're like, yeah, that's me. I hate the place already. Yeah, no. Don't raise your hand on that one. That's not good. No. But for you, less than 5 years in the workplace, don't be a 220. Just saying. So tips for working with Gen Xers. Don't micromanage. That's the worst thing you can do. Random applause. You're like, yeah, that's fine, man. Preaching, brother. He's over there preaching, my brother. Yes, don't micromanage. Tell us what you need us to do. Let us do our thing. Make sure we know we can come back and ask for help if we need it. All that. Just point you in the right direction. That way. Take the hill. Yes, sir. And you take the hill. Right? Don't be like, okay, you need to go back and hide underneath this rock, and you need to go over here and over in that ditch. I ain't worried about what you said. You said take the hill, right? Yeah, I'm on it, boss. Got it. Let them take the hill. Put them in the right direction. Same thing. Keep them in the loop and understand the rationale behind the decisions. The why. No different than the millennials. Just tell them the why. They get a little bit of rationale behind it. They're on, okay, I get it. I see how it fits. I'm cool. Offer a variety of tasks and projects for their own responsibility because Gen Xers see themselves as being responsible for their own career advancement. That's good in one way. You don't have to babysit them. The bad in the other is if you don't give them cool stuff to do, they're going to advance their career, whether it's at your organization or somebody else's. Turnover is expensive. But I help with that, so it keeps me in job security. But it shouldn't keep these folks there. Focus on results. And what was it? Oh, yeah, results versus the process and the procedures. Focus on results. And provide some ongoing mentoring, some training, some coaching. Clear expectations and deadlines, and how can that Gen Xer measure their progress. And for the millennials, communicate clear expectations, clear definitions of success. What does a win look like? Paint the picture. If they see what a win looks like, okay, I'm good. I can do that. Sure. Because they want to make a difference. Clear deadlines and follow up promptly if they're missed. Whatever you do, I understand everybody's busy, but this is what not to do. You screw something up, they're like, I got to write him up. I got a meeting to go to. And then, I got to go home and I hear that. It's like 3 weeks later. Oh, yeah, by the way, I got this piece of paper for you to sign. What? Yeah, this is so-and-so for 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago? Yes, don't do that. That is not good with this group. No. It's kind of like the puppy that poops on the floor. You don't take him back 3 days later and say, hey, look, that ain't cool, right? And we all know this, right? So it's like, no. Don't wait 3 weeks, 2 months, couple years. Yeah, their annual leave out. You really screwed up on this, so you're not going to get your 3%. Well, you couldn't tell me that 12 months ago. Yeah, I'd stay away from that one. Offer some training on some new skills, lots and lots of feedback and recognition. That's a big deal. They like feedback. We all like feedback and recognition. That annual review is great. We all have to have it. I love it. But there's a lot of material out there. Little bonus package here. Go online, YouTube. Buddy of mine from school named David Burkus. Read a few books. He is outstanding. He's done a lot of talks at Google. He is really big on the performance evaluations, talking about doing almost monthly and quarterly, these constant reviews, and almost doing away with the yearly eval. Or by the time the yearly eval goes, it's just a formality at that point. You already know how you do it. About the fallacy of the yearly eval. David Burkus, he's awesome. What can they expect from the company? And when you're providing training, help with things that can with frustration, because there's a lot of frustrating things when you're dealing with these barriers and unnecessary bureaucracy. Why do I have to keep jumping through all these hoops? Why can't I just get the job done? Why can't I just talk to the person? I got to talk to 17 people before, but he can only, that's the only person that can give me the answer. Why can't I just go ask him? That gets very frustrating. But we throw those roadblocks in the way for all of us. Some of us are used to, okay, that's just how it works. Gotta ask him, I gotta ask him, I gotta ask him. Can't hurt anybody's feelings. Gotta ask him, I gotta ask her, then she's gotta know about it. Waste of time. So research is showing something very interesting. I was talking to a few of you about this. We keep categorizing all millennials into one group. But actually, they're actually kind of splitting almost into two separate groups, which I thought was very interesting when I did the research on this. Saying, I didn't realize that. But when I say that, you're going to be like, well, yeah, duh. I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes, so you have to pardon me. So the first group are the ones that fit the stereotype. They're the ones that everybody loves to hate. They're the ones that everybody fusses about. Well, that lives in mama's basement. They are not giving the gas card back. It is not going to happen. So don't just stop asking. I'm just saying. They're going to have an entitled and patient. No real world traction. Failure to launch, whatever you call it. It just ain't happening. That train left the station and it's okay. At least they'll get the house when you're gone. I mean, they'll still have the basement. I mean, anything rent the upstairs at, I don't know. And then there's the other group, the other half of the millennials, who don't fit the stereotype. Now, granted, they're doing everything that all the other generations have done. They do everything they're expected to do. They're going out, they're being productive, they get jobs, they get educations. Guess what? They're having kids, they're going to college, they're doing all of that. Granted, maybe a few years after the rest of us did, saying a little bit later, but they're getting the job done. They're out there doing it. I would dare say probably a few of the folks in maybe aspiring leaders, maybe in this category, maybe versus that category. I'm just saying, right, a few, but they're out there getting the job done. And then you got all the people that aren't. And unfortunately, it only takes a couple people that aren't to foul up all the people that are. Matter of fact, this was the most interesting part of the research that I found. I had no idea. I should have known, but like I said, I'm a little slow on the uptake. I see some heads like, all right. Yes, no one is more upset with group one than group two. I can tell you, Gen Xers aren't as upset with group one. Baby boomers aren't as upset with group one. The people that are most upset with group number one is group number two, because they're giving them a bad name. Like, you are fouling this up for me, brother. You gotta just knock it off. Go and get your job, do something, because you are messing it. You're hurting me out in my cred here. Stop it. Put the Game Boy down and go get a job, because I'm out here whooping it, saying 50 hours a week. You need to do something. You're making me look bad. So more so what? 30. Now, let me preface this. Who's a director? Who's a manager, business owner, P&L responsibility? Who in here is kind of that? A few folks, okay, all right. Paying the bills, right? Paying the bills, right? Turnover is expensive. 38% of millennials nationwide are actively, not like, hey, if something comes up, man, that's cool, actively out there beating the pavement looking for a new role. And why? Because the economy's getting a lot better. They take their licks for a while. They know, hey, I got a job. Jobs ain't easy to come by. But think about it right here in Winchester, ladies and gentlemen. Is jobs hard to come by in Winchester? What's our problem? What's that? Unemployment's way too high. Unemployment's way too low. Yes, it's low. It's an employee's market right now. So, excuse me, shameless plug number 5, right? You got a bank, and I know we're in the trucking industry, so I can use the banking industry. I'm gonna pick on them for a little bit. You got a bank. You come in every day. You're a teller. You're like, man, this place is like family. You just get along. Everybody communicates. Everybody does their thing. It's great. Question for you: when Navy Federal comes into town paying $3 an hour more, are you gonna lose that teller when they know you got their back and they know that you're pouring into them and training them and they know that it's like a family? No, you're not gonna lose them for a couple bucks an hour. But if they don't feel like that, bye-bye. And that's your money just walked right out the door. And that's not just millennials, but I'm just saying that's when you got 38% of them actively looking. Well, PricewaterhouseCoopers, they had 80% of their workers that are under age 36. So think about it. If 80% of your workforce, almost 40% of them are actively looking. Holy smokes. You were talking about business disruption. That's 2 words for you there. Business disruption. Should be 3, but there's a little hyphen. They're going to find the opportunity with you, or they're going to find the opportunity somewhere else. You provide those challenging opportunities, those challenging roles for them. They can grow and develop in your company. Keep them at your company. Don't let them go outside and find opportunities elsewhere. Can you afford to lose 40% of your millennials right now? I don't know too many companies that can. So number 2, some strategies according to them. Most important feature of a workplace. In their survey that they did, the most important feature of a workplace was opportunity for personal development. That was the number 1 thing millennials wanted in a workplace. Growth, learning, opportunity, a way to contribute. That was the number 1 by far. Number 2 was flexibility. Number 3 was transparency and purpose. Everything in their life has been all over Facebook, so it's out there. Privacy, all right, that's nice. So transparency is just what they've grown up with. Why wouldn't they expect it from the companies they work with and the people they work with? It's what they're used to. Kind of hard to get mad at somebody, that's all they know. And the last on the list was money. Now saying that, I got to throw a little... That does not mean, oh boy, I can hire me a whole lot of millennials and pay them half what I'm paying everybody else. And get right, no, that's not cool. Yeah, the money just got to be enough to be off the table. That's not their number 1 driving motivating factor, which is good. Fair compensation, good pay package, that's great. That's at least that part's off the table. We got a roof over the head, 3 squares a day, a little money for the college for the kids. We're good, right? Once that's off the table, then it's 1, 2, and 3, especially number 1. They value working with strong coaches and mentors. Older people in the workplace, if you could be a strong coach and mentor to millennials, that's fantastic. That was one of them. And they disliked outdated work practices, rigid hierarchies, fixed hours, and uninspiring places of work was one of the things they listed. Who really does like uninspiring places of work? Everybody just trudge along in the cubicle the rest, no, not a lot of fun. And so that's really not expected. It all goes back to employee engagement. So 2 important points, they have new perspectives and they have new ways of looking at things, which is awesome. But more importantly, they have number 2. They have the energy and the drive to go do it. Because sometimes you just get tired, man. I just want to go home. I'll put my feet up, man. I'm busted. So you got somebody that's out there, a hard charger that wants to really contribute, make good things, point them in the right direction, let them go. Give them that opportunity. It's awesome. So communication is really the key. And even better to go what I call beyond communication. Because Harvard Business Review talked about the number 1 criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is the ability to communicate effectively. And having those effective communication skills is important But when I say we need to go beyond communication to connection. So I look at what's the difference. You communicate, you're up here, you're talking to somebody, talking to them, talking to your coworker, talking to your colleague is different than connecting with your colleague and your coworker. And actually, listen, we'll go into that. So John Maxwell in his book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, talk about there's 5 principles of connecting, and then with each principle, there's 5 practices to put into action. So I just wanted to talk about one briefly. Connecting increases your influence in every situation. You're like, okay, influence. What do we do? That's all we do every day. Whether you're in sales, whether you're trying to influence people to get things done. And when you come in there and you talk about leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership. And leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So if you think about leaders, when you talk about getting rid of some of the hierarchical positions, you have the position on the org chart. Just think about it. You got the brand new lieutenant that walks in, the butter bars, they right out of West Point. Who's there going to listen to him? Or Sarge has been there 25 years. When he gives an order, they all look at Sarge and be like, he's like, no, you gotta go do it. Oh, okay, and they go do it. Brand new foreman on a manufacturing floor. Who are they going to listen to? That other guy has been there 30 years. With the old beat up yellow helmet, the guy with the brand new shiny white helmet, just gleaming in the sunshine. Who are they going to listen to? Who's the leader? Who has the most influence? So we can connect with people, we can increase our influence. But what I mean by connecting is the ability to identify with people, relate to them in a way that increases your influence with them. Now, quick question for you. How would it impact your career if you could connect better with your clients, with your coworkers, with your boss? Life go a little bit better if you could have a better connection, better communication with your boss, with your coworkers, with your work colleagues that you work with, your peers, your subordinates. So as we mentioned, Harvard Business Review talks about that number 1 criteria for promotion and advancement. So for you millennials that want to move up, you want that opportunity to take those advantages, learn how to communicate effectively, learn how to connect. So I have one brief example, politics aside, at connecting versus communicating. It was the Carter-Reagan debate, the final debate in 1980. Carter was very cold, he was impersonal, was very stoic. Press said he was humorless, kind of disengaged, and he tried to make the listeners feel really sorry for him because of all the burdens of the job. Don't worry, we'll take that burden away from you. Just, you'll be okay. But then Reagan actually walked over and shook Carter's hand, which that just wasn't done at the time. He made his appeal directly to the audience. He used facts and figures, no different than Carter did, but he wasn't trying to come across as the expert. He told his audience, you make this country great. He reached out to the audience and connected with them. And then, of course, they asked, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And that pretty much sealed the deal. Because we don't know the answer. You look at interest rates. Anybody remember what interest rates were at the end of Carter's administration? Or just remember a whole lot more than 3.875. Let's put it that way. So we'll leave it at that. So 3 ways to become a better connector. One, you have to have the desire to connect. If I don't care about you, if I don't want to connect with you, I'm probably not going to connect with you. So you go to go a little bit deeper than just superficial communication. It's the difference between sitting down and having a one-on-one with somebody versus going to a networking event and just handing out cards like a blackjack deal. Whole lot different communicating. Here's what I do. Here's a card. Let's connect. And then actually sitting down with them over a cup of coffee for a half hour, an hour, and learning a lot more about them. That's the difference. 2, you got to have the courage to change. And that's not easy. You've been doing things a certain way for a certain time. That's not an easy thing. And that takes a lot of courage. But connecting is a skill that can be acquired. It's not rocket science. It's just people, just like we are. Everybody's people. So sometimes you have to have the courage to admit that you have a deficiency or an area for improvement. And we all can get better at that skill. And then you have to have the right attitude. Because really it all starts with that attitude. I care about people. I want to connect. I want to learn a little bit more about the people that I work with. Even if it's nothing else, but we can be more efficient and effective and productive in what we're doing. So to increase our influence with others, help bridge that generational difference in the workforce, you kind of have to go beyond just communicating with people, just talking to people or at people and looking at connecting with people that you work with. So no matter what our goals are, truly connecting somebody can help you. Now, a couple of quotes. This one from Victoria Osteen talk about, I think we have a great opportunity to impart our wisdom and our knowledge and our experience to the younger generation. Maybe different times, but experience transcends time and wisdom transcends time. And then one of my absolute favorites, Coach. Gotta love Coach. Young people need models, not critics. Young people need models, not critics. So pull out your phones. I got a quick question for you, another pop quiz. I have a much better understanding of generational differences in the workforce. True or false? I probably set a high bar. I should have said, I have just a little bit more understanding. That I got a better response from there. So like I said, I'm a little slow in the uptake sometimes. So apologies. Wow, okay, oh, I did pretty good. I thought, outstanding. A little bit better understanding. Very good. Now, remember I had 3 specific objectives. One of them was to inform. One of them was to educate. Does anybody remember what the third one was?
Entertain.
Get on your phone, chime in, answer the question. Hello. Yay. So I have a challenge for you guys. I told you on the video, I'd leave you with some homework. Here's the homework. For Gen X and baby boomers. Actually, even before I tell that. If you're millennials, go out and find someone who knows where the bodies are buried. Okay? Learn from them. You need to know where they are because it trust me, that's a help. So let's just put that one as a baseline, right? Find you a good mentor, find you a good coach, find out where the keys are, find out where the bodies are buried. But for Gen X and baby boomers, do this, take this challenge, find one person where you work who's younger than you. And the more gutsy you want to be about this, the younger they could be. Well, just if you're a baby boomer, just skip Gen X and go to a millennial. I'll tell you, really just do it right. Find someone that's way younger than you in your workplace and ask them this. Just get them to teach you one thing that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So let them start teaching you things. Let them start telling you things. Let them start telling you about technology. What can I do to get, I'm having a hard time with this, I'm having a hard time with that. Let them teach you the stuff that they do know. That helps you connect with them.
From this table of gigglers.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I've noticed that, but that's okay. That's
one of the things that we discussed was, maybe we don't want to know the answer to the one thing that we do not know. How would you maybe approach that question a little different?
Sure. I would go back to point number 2. It takes courage to want to connect with somebody. You have to, it's not an easy thing. I didn't say it was easy. It takes a lot of courage to reach out and connect with somebody and learn something new. Because that's kind of, I'm in my comfort zone. I'm here. I'm good. I know what I know. I don't need to know anymore. I'm good. And boss man, boss lady's not bothering me a whole lot. I'm good. Check clears every 2 weeks. As long as that check keeps showing up, so do I. You know, that's. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to be in that silent contract. You know what I mean? You know the silent contract. Everybody here know what I mean? The silent contract. That silent contract. You pay me just enough not to leave, and I'll do just enough for not to get fired. 5 o'clock comes, I'm out the door. Rinse and repeat tomorrow. Just enough not to make me quit, and I'll do just enough not to get fired. Why? Do that for 30 years? Not so much. So I'd still throw that challenge out to everybody. And it does take courage from the giggler table. Thank you. Good question. Reach out to one person that's younger than you. Ask them to teach you one thing you don't know. Not hard, one thing. You might be surprised. So my name is Dr. Dave Miles. As Jessica said and Sam said, my mission is to add value to those who make an impact in the lives of others. So if you received value from anything I said tonight, please go out tomorrow and make a positive impact in at least one person's life. Maybe the one that you ask, hey, tell me something I don't know. Thanks. Thank you, sir.